Jeremiah 7, verses 13 through 15. And now because you have done all these things, declares the Lord, and when I spoke to you persistently, you did not listen. And when I called you, you did not answer. Therefore I will do to the house that is called by my name, and in which you trust, and to the place that I gave you and your fathers, as I did to Shiloh. And I will cast you out of my sight, and I cast out all your kinsmen, all the offspring of Ephraim. Samuel, we all know who Samuel is, right?
Yes.
Samuel was just a Samuel was just a boy when his parents gave him to Eli, the high priest, dedicating his life to the service of the Lord. Now his family, it's not like we know. His family was a godly family. They went to the temple every year and they worshiped and the whole gamut. But we know that his mom was barren. And she cried and she pleaded with God, just give me somebody. Because her counterpart was having children left and right, almost like it was with Leah and Rachel. So she was all upset, and of course we know that at that time Eli looked at her and said, oh my gosh, woman, it's too early in the morning to be getting drunk. And I'm not drunk. I'm pleading with God for this suffering that I'm doing. So she gave up, and when she had Samuel, after it was time to be weaned, which is about, I guess, around 5 years old or so, she took him back there and gave him over to Samuel. 1 Samuel 3:7 tells us, now Samuel did not know the Lord, not yet know the Lord, and the word of the Lord had not been revealed to him. If you remember the story of God calling him, Eli, he was pretty old then. He was fairly old and kind of feeble in a way. He was pretty much blind. And I'm not sure how heavy he is at this point in time, but you never know. Samuel was in the chamber next to Eli's when he heard the voice calling him, Samuel. And Samuel got up and went to Eli 3 times. And Eli said, it's not me, dude. It's not me. I'm not calling you. And then he goes, wait a minute. It's probably the Lord. If he calls you again, tell him, I am here. Speak, your servant is listening. He answered when God called to him in the night, and God gave him a message that said, 1 Samuel 3, verses 11 through 14, then the Lord said to Samuel, behold, I'm about to do a thing in Israel at which the 2 ears of everyone who hears it will tingle. On that day I will fulfill against Eli and all that I have spoken concerning his house from the beginning to the end. And I declare to him that I'm about to punish his house forever for the iniquity that he knew, because his sons were blaspheming God, and he did not restrain them. Therefore I swear to the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be atoned for by sacrifice or offering forever. If you were told this, and you've been living with Eli for a little while, would you want to go tell him, the high priest, what God said? Heck no, not me. Eli, however, was not one of those high priests that was going to let it go. If God spoke to you, I want to know what he told you. Do not hold it from me, because if you do, may what he said about me, or what he said that you don't tell me, be twice as much on you. Oh, okay, you win, Eli, you win. Israel had this big problem. And that's what the whole thing was with the time of the judges. They just couldn't keep from turning their backs on God. And the oppression was too much to bear. When it was that way, they would cry out to God. And God would send someone to rescue them. As Scripture states in Judges 17:6, in those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. Man, does this sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? In our day and age, everyone did right what was in his own eyes. And if you ask me, is creating havoc in the world today. This dark time was epitomized by the departure of the symbol of God's presence, the Ark of the Covenant, from the people of Israel. 1 Samuel 3:1b tells us, and the word of the Lord was rare in those days. There was no frequent vision. The spiritual leaders were corrupt, and God's people were not obeying his law, so why should he tell anything to them? Why should he show them anything new? And it seems that since men were not listening to God in those days, he rarely bothered to speak to them. Why would he waste his breath? This lays out the groundwork for the departure of God's glory from Israel. Unfortunately, we will come to discover that the capture of the ark and its removal from the land of the Philistines only symbolizes what is already true. What has been true for a long time. The glory of God had departed from Israel. I think sometimes we look at it in our own day and age and we think, man, it'd be so fun and great when God's glory comes back to us. Because I think that there's a lot of times we look at it and go, I know God's there. Where's he at? 1 Samuel 4, verses 1 and 2. And the word of Samuel came to all of Israel. Now, Israel went out to battle against the Philistines. They encamped at Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped at Aphek. The Philistines drew up in the line against Israel, and when the battle spread, Israel was defeated before the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men in the field of battle. And when the people came to the camp, the elders of Israel said, why has the Lord defeated us today before the Philistines? I know, let us bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord here from Shiloh, that it may come among us and save us from the power of our enemies. Man, it seems like a never-ending cycle with the Israelites. Philistines are, man, it's like their number one nemesis for a long time. They're pitted against them again. In the initial confrontation with the Philistines, they suffered a great defeat. They lost 4,000 men. And the elders and the leaders of Israel, they were totally bewildered and perplexed, calling an emergency meeting to analyze just what happened and what went wrong. They focused on one basic question. Why did the Lord bring defeat upon us today? If they had stopped to evaluate their own sinful lifestyles, well, guess what? They would have known and had that answer ahead of them already. They asked the right question, but unfortunately, they drew the wrong conclusion. They decided the thing to do was to use the Ark of the Covenant as a manipulation tool for God. Let us bring the Ark of the Covenant from the Lord, from Shiloh to us, and when it comes among us, it may save us from the hands of our enemy. That sounds like a really good plan to me. They have history with this thing, you know, in the past. But keep in mind that God had given Israel very distinct instruction through Moses as a way in which the military campaigns were to be conducted. And we find that in Deuteronomy 20. But none of them seem to have been put into practice on this occasion. No priest is called to ask counsel of God or bless the going forth of the army of Israel. In a very modern fashion, Israel only seems interested in God getting them out of the mess they have gotten themselves into. They did not begin to think either of God nor of the Ark of the Covenant until they had suffered that defeat. Instead of searching their hearts and confessing their sins, they decided to imitate Joshua and Moses and take the Ark of the Covenant into battle with them. Numbers 10:33 through 36. So they set out from the mount of the Lord 3 days' journey, and the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord went before them 3 days' journey to seek out the resting place for them. And the cloud of the Lord was over them by day whenever they set out from the camp. And whenever the Ark of the Lord set out, Moses said, Arise, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered, and let those who hate you flee before you. They didn't do any of that. They just said, man, if we lose another battle like that, we're just going to be wiped out. Bring forth the ark. Kind of reminds me of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Bring forth the holy hand grenade. They apparently regarded the Ark of the Covenant as some sort of giant good luck charm, saying if we bring the Ark here, then our luck will change. The children of Israel either did not know or did not consider the presence of the physical symbol of God's presence, that it would do no good when the hearts of the people were far from Him. We see that today too. Even as believers today, we need to get over this idea that God will bless us in spite of our disobedience. Notice with me that the text reveals 3 wrong ways in which the people try to interact with God. First is, God is not a good luck charm. I don't have Him on my keychain, little symbol of God, you know. I don't have that. 1 Samuel 4, verses 4 through 7. So the people sent to Shiloh and brought from there the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord of the host, who is enthroned on the cherubim. And the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the Ark of the Covenant of God. As soon as the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord came into camp, all Israel gave a mighty shout, so that the earth resounded. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shouting, they said, "What does this great shouting in the camp of the Hebrews mean?" And when they learned that the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord had come into the camp, the Philistines were afraid. For they said, "A God has come into the camp." And they said, "Woe to us, for nothing like this has happened before." I can't even imagine that. The sound that the army made. Now we all know that ark is about 4 foot long, 2 foot high, 2 foot wide. And we know that that ark is made of wood with overlaid of pure gold. And on top of it was that solid slab of gold called the mercy seat. And in the ark was the tablets that God gave at the law. And out of the mercy seat were those cherubim on each side that had the wings that went over it. The ark was the most sacred piece of furniture in the temple, and it was kept in the Holy of Holies. It was so holy that we all know that the priests were only allowed to go in there once a year to look at it. Not to touch it, to look at it. And that was when they were making the atonement sacrifice for Israel's sins, and that's in Leviticus 16. Now they sent for that ark, and they wanted it present with them. It was not that they wanted the ark so that they could serve God at the battlefield, or worship God, or revere God. They wanted the presence of God for their own purposes. They were not seeking the will of God, and they were not walking in faith, and they certainly were not seeking to glorify Him. Even worse, the 2 wicked sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, would be carrying the ark of God. It was significant for Israel to learn that they could not manipulate God as by means of His ark to give them victory when their hearts were not right with Him. A modern form of this is to see promises of God as some kind of magical formula. Well, gosh, if I do this and this, well then, gosh, God has to do this. He must do it. Christians need to learn that God is not like a mop or a dish rag that just goes around cleaning up our messes that we make. The question remains, are we putting God first in our lives or summoning God when all else has failed us? Only you can answer that for yourself. Isaiah 29, 13b through 14. Because the people draw near with their mouth and honor me with their lips, while their hearts are far from me, and their fear of me is a commandment taught by men. Therefore, behold, I will again do wonderful things with this people, and wonder upon wonder, and the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the discernment of their discerning men shall be hidden. Israel's hope was that the presence of the ark would turn that battle in their favor. But Israel's plan backfired in a big way. As Donald Trump says, in a huge way. The ark may have been with them in the camp, but the Lord was against them. Their strategy served only to strengthen the resolve of the enemy to fight much harder. 1 Samuel 4, 8 through 11 tells us, "Woe to us, Who could deliver us from the power of these mighty gods? These are the gods who struck the Egyptians with every sort of plague in the wilderness. Take courage and be men, O Philistines, lest you become slaves to the Hebrews, as they have been to you. Be men and fight. So the Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated. And they fled, every man to his home. And there was a great slaughter, for 30,000 foot soldiers of Israel fell. And the ark of God was captured. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, died. Woo! God's no fool. You can't play him like one either. When Hophni and Phinehas arrived at the Israel encampment with the ark, every man shouted so loudly that the ground literally shook. The conclusion of the Philistines was to hear the roar that was caused by the arrival of the ark of Israel. They were super excited, and instead of being disheartened, the Philistines, it caused them to fight even harder. It encouraged them. They knew who this God was. Oh my gosh, they brought the guy that took care of the Egyptians with the plagues and all the stuff. Oh my gosh, we're in trouble. Well, by golly, we're not going to give up without a fight. Fight hard. Be men. Be real men. And they killed 10,000 men. And those that managed to escape the field, they fled. The Ark of the Covenant is taken by the Philistines, and the two sons of the priest Eli, Phinehas and Hophni, they're killed. Never in the history of Israel has the Ark of God fallen into enemy hands. As I said earlier, unfortunately, the capture of the ark only symbolizes what is already true and what has been true for a long time. The glory of God had departed from Israel. 1 Samuel 4, 17 and 18. He who brought the news answered and said, Israel has fled before the Philistines, and there has also been a great defeat among the people. Your two sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead. And the Ark of the Covenant has been captured. As soon as he mentioned the Ark of God, Eli fell backwards from his seat by his side of the gate, and his neck was broken, and he died. For the man was old and heavy. He had judged Israel for 40 years. They always sent runners when there was a battle. You wanted people to know whether it was a victory or a defeat. And this runner came, and Eli, he'd been sitting by that gate. Because he knew it. He did not, I don't think he really wanted the Ark of the Covenant to go. And he was more concerned about that Ark of the Covenant than anything else. And it's a sad state of affairs. God had prophesied the end of Eli and his family. And unfortunately, that dying just didn't stop with those three. It did not stop with those three. The wife of Eli, Eli's son Phinehas, who was pregnant when she hears of her husband's death and the death of her husband and father-in-law, she goes into premature labor. And as she is in labor, things do not go well. Informed that her child is a boy, she names him Ichabod, which means no glory. No glory. Because she realizes the departure of the ark symbolizes the departure of God's glory. Israel had used the ark as a good luck charm, and Eli was concerned for that safety of the ark. Only this woman seems to be concerned for the glory of God. Brings us the second thing. God refuses to be displayed as a trophy. The Philistines, they captured that ark. But they soon learned that the ark, like his written word, was designed as a comfort and encouragement to his people, but not to his enemies. When the Philistines got what they wanted, they did not want what they had. It's like a hot potato. The real ark gave the Philistines as much trouble as the fictional ark gave the Nazis in the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark. God will use the ark to teach both the Jews and the Philistines some important lessons. 1 Samuel 5, verses 1 through 3. When the Philistines captured the ark of God, they brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. Then the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it into the house of Dagon and set it up beside Dagon. And when the people of Ashdod rose early the next day, behold, Dagon had fallen face downward on the ground before the ark of the Lord. So they took Dagon and put him back up in his place. The Philistines took that ark to their capital city. Why? Because that's what you did. If you have won a great battle, your God's much stronger than everybody else's. We're going to put your God in front of ours and go, na 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 boo boo. He has to sit there and be worshipped and do whatever homage to your God. Their God was Dagon. And Dagon was considered the father of Baal. Now, no doubt this is done to show that Dagon was stronger and more powerful than Jehovah. But boy, were they in for a surprise. When the Philistines entered the temple the next morning, it tells us that their God was face down. Face down. This might have shocked them just a little bit. So what did they do? They picked him back up, brushed him off, put him back on a stand, made sure he was nice and solid, and they left away. And they went the next day. 1 Samuel 4:5 tells us, but when they rose early the next morning, behold, Dagon had fallen face downward on the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both his hands were lying cut off on the threshold. Only the trunk of Dagon was left to him. And this is why the priest of Dagon and all who entered the house of Dagon do not tread on that threshold of Dagon and Ashdod to this day. They got up and there he was, down again, and it looked like somebody had just cut the head off and cut the hands off. Now they must begin to wonder if they have the Hebrew God in their hands or if it's the other way around. Maybe, just maybe, we made a mistake. We should have left this stupid thing out on the battlefield. The Philistines should have asked themselves, what kind of God has to be set upright by its subjects and carried off for repairs after it's broken? The Philistines could have gotten rid of Dagon and their sins, but they chose rather to get rid of the ark and their plagues. Though they recognized that it was God's hand upon them, they still refused to repent. They refused. They did not profit from their painful experience. Just as today, some people refuse to allow God to break through their pride. Though they have time and after time seen evidence of His hand in their lives, and because they refuse to learn from the difficult lessons that God was teaching them, there are even more difficult lessons to come. Proverbs 29:1 tells us, he who is often reproved yet stiffens his neck will suddenly be broken beyond healing. Verse 6 reveals that the Lord not only humiliated the God of the Philistines, but He also judged the people who worship this false god. 1 Samuel 5:6 and 7. The hand of the Lord was heavy against the people of Ashdod, and He terrified and afflicted them with tumors, both Ashdod and its territory. And when the men of Ashdod saw how things were, they said, the ark of the God of Israel must not remain with us, for His hand is hard against us and against Dagon our God. That terrible plague had come upon them, around the people of Ashdod. And it's impossible to be dogmatic about the exact identity of these plagues. Some commentaries think that it was the bubonic plague, and that the people experienced painful inflammation of their lymph glands, particularly in the groin. But others think that it was a severe form of hemorrhoids, because of the translation in the King James Version of verse 9. Emerods in their secret parts. But whatever it is, the people did not only suffer pain and humiliation, but they are also dying like flies. And it's apparent that the leaders come to realize that the plagues they are suffering is due to the presence of the ark in their midst. So in 1 Samuel 5:9 it says, so they sent and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines and said, what shall we do with the ark of God of Israel? And they answered, let the ark of the God of Israel be brought around to Gath. So they brought the ark of the covenant of Israel there. They start passing this ark around to other cities with the same results. From Ashdod to Gath, from Gath to Ekron. And this is it's kind of like the Kellogg-Wallace-Mullen rivalry that we have. We're all really close. 3 school districts in a 33-mile stretch. And we hate each other with a passion. During wintertime, each school will think that they're better than the others when school is called off for a reason. The one year that we took 2 days off for snow, Wallace had school and so did Mullen. And we, oh boy, did you hear it. Y'all nothing but a bunch of wusses. We're tougher than you are because we're still in school. And it's like, okay, I'm so happy for you. Or when they're out, Kellogg sends the same stupid messages to them. It's ridiculous. 1 Samuel 5:11. They sent therefore and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines and said, send. I lost my place.
Send away the ark of the
Let's start all over. They sent therefore and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines and said, send away the ark of the God of Israel, and let it return to its own place, that it may not kill us or our people. For there was a deadly panic throughout the whole city. The hand of God was heavy there. Now see, they just wasn't being told, hey, take this thing and let's send it back. They were asking, well, what else should we do? And they were told by all their fancy leaders or whatever, go ahead and make 5 golden tumors and 5 mice and put them in there and send it back with this ark to the Israel as a guilt offering. Now, I don't know about you, but I really tend to think it was hemorrhoids. Make gold things of your tumors. Oh, here, pick me. I want to be the model for it. Heavens to Betsy. I remember when we did our last thing around this time, and I put up a picture of the golden hemorrhoid, as I called it, up on the screen. I almost did it again this time. The Philistines, they do recognize the plague as the hand of God as a judgment for having the ark in their midst, but they do not reject the powerless God, nor do they trust in the God of Israel and worship him. I'm sorry, but you afflict me with this kind of stuff, and I know it's because I got your stuff in my possession. And I'm praying to my God, and my God is saying, nothing? Because he's just a chunk of stone? I'm telling you, I'm switching to the other God. I'm going to the other God, because obviously that God has power. They very simply want God out of their town. They stubbornly clung to the possibility that all these disasters could just be bad luck. If they could prove that the calamities were all coincidence, then they could keep the ark and continue to magnify Dagon's superiority over Jehovah. The Philistines outline the scheme that they think will test the God of Israel one last time. 1 Samuel 6, 7 through 9. Now then, take and prepare a new cart and 2 milk cows on which there has never come a yoke, and yoke the cows to the cart. But take their calves home, away from them, and take the ark of the Lord and place it on the cart, and put in a box on its side the figures of gold, which you are returning to him as a guilt offering. Then send it off, and let it go its way, and watch. If it goes on the way to its own land, to Beth Shemesh, then it is he who has done us the great harm. But if not, then we shall know that it was not his hand that struck us. It happened by coincidence. This is a pretty ingenious plan if you really think about it. Or at least they think so. When you consider that these cows were nursing calves, and that the cows had never drawn a cart before, the Philistines had the deck nicely stacked in their favor. The odds were with them that these cows would pull that cart down the road to the nearest Israelite town of Beth Shemesh. They thought they had this all figured out. But what they hadn't reckoned for was with God, for verse 12 reveals that then the cows headed straight for the road to go home. See, in their mind, You got 2 cows with babies that we took away. They're figuring these 2 cows are going to go, woohoo, head back to home with our babies. We can't do. I mean, Amy watches these programs online about these farms, and they have these stupid cows. And they're really cool. But they had some where the mama cow was like, oh, heck no, you're not getting rid of my baby. My baby's staying with me. And if you try and take him away, I'm going to get you. It's incredible. So we just know. But they did not take in that consideration. The cows headed straight for the road to Beth Shemesh and went along the highway, lowing as they went. They did not turn to the left or the right. The Philistines did not know the true and living God, but the cows did. The cows knew who God was, and they obeyed him. What's the third thing that happened? Well, God refuses to be treated with disdain. 1 Samuel 6, 13 through 15 and 19 through 21. Now the people of Beth Shemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley. And when they lifted up their eyes and they saw the ark, they rejoiced to see it. Oh, Lord, it's home. The cart came into the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh and stopped there. A great stone was there where it stopped. And they split up the wood of the cart and offered the cows as a burnt offering to the Lord. And the Levites took down the ark of the Lord and the box that was beside it, in which were the golden figures, and they set them upon the great stone. And the men of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings and sacrificed sacrifices on that day to the Lord. And he struck some of the men of Beth Shemesh because they looked upon the ark of the Lord. He struck 70 men of them. And the people mourned because the Lord had struck the people with a great blow. And then the men of Beth Shemesh said, who is able to stand before the Lord, this holy God? And to whom shall he go up away from us? So they sent messengers to the inhabitants of Kirjarim, saying, the Philistines have returned the ark of the Lord. Come down and take it up with you. When that ark arrived, can you imagine? Can you imagine being in a field? You're still feeling down because you know you got your butts kicked, and you're the most prized possession you have has been taken from you, and it's been gone for about 6 months or so. And you look up, and there it is. It's right in front of you. You see, there's things that they did not pay attention to. And it might be because, well, again, we're in a time frame where the people turn their back on God again still. And so they may not have remembered that this thing should have been covered. It was not supposed to be seen by anyone except the high priest. The people did not do this even though they knew, and for the cost of this errant judgment, it's going to be high. 70 of them are going to die. Some of the people became curious and looked into the ark, and they were slain. And there is some difference of opinion as to whether the individuals looked into it or upon the ark, but either way, it was an action that was forbidden. It was forbidden, and a number of the Israelites lost their lives as a result. If the pagan Philistines were judged for the way they unknowingly treated the ark, how much more does God hold accountable those who knew the law and were living it in a Levitical priestly city? The awesome event describes the certainty that would seem to warn us today against a lack of reverence for the things of God. Hebrews 10, 30b and 31 says, the Lord will judge his people. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. It's even more fearful to fall into the hands of an angry living God. When it comes right down to it, when we don't listen, there are consequences. When we know better and we don't pay attention, there are consequences. The Philistines knew this ark. They knew what it was. They said they knew what it was, and yet they still treated it in a terrible manner. They didn't change their way. The people who should have known better didn't treat it the way they thought that they knew they should have. They didn't listen. They didn't pay attention. And they suffered the consequences for it. Keep the ears peeled and listen for his voice, and be obedient when you hear what he's asking you to do. And it's so much fun when you are obedient. The things that God does through our obedience to further his kingdom is just incredible. And I know that we're pretty much happy when it happens. We get to have great smiles on our face, and we know that God has done something great with us. Go out and be great this week. Be great. Let's go to prayer.